The arrest seemed routine until the courtroom exposed everything.
A woman of color at the helm of a $70,000 Mercedes-Benz cruising under the cloak of midnight. The vehicle, an obvious stolen property. Officer Vance Keller, with swift, unhesitating movements, plucks the registration documents directly from Judge Nadia Brooks's grasp. He makes no attempt to peruse them. Instead, he crumples the vital papers into a tight ball and discards them onto the unforgiving shoulder of the interstate. Out of the automobile, hands elevated. She obliges, her actions deliberate and slow, palms upturned, adhering strictly to protocol. He then seizes her shoulder, propelling her forcefully against the unforgiving metal of the car door. The impact resonates, a sharp crack against the night. Her tailored coat snags on a protruding door handle, a tear marking the violence of the encounter. This vehicle does not belong to you. His breath, warm and invasive, ghosts against her neck. This is a misunderstanding, she states, her voice a soft murmur. Of course it is, sweetheart, he retorts, his tone laced with a dismissive condescension. He wrenches her arm behind her back with a brutal twist. The handcuffs clamp down with unforgiving pressure, the cold metal biting into her skin, drawing blood. They all utter the same thing, he sneers, a cruel laugh escaping his lips. His partner chuckles in agreement. She offers no resistance, no protest. Tomorrow morning, he will face the gravitas of black judicial robes. His resolve will waver. His knees will falter. She articulates her truth with a clarity that belies the situation, her tone placid as if reciting a well-rehearsed script. Officer, this automobile is my property. The registration is valid. I am Judge Nadia Brooks, presiding over the Fulton County Circuit Court. You may confirm my identity through dispatch. Officer Vance Keller erupts in genuine laughter, not a polite titter, but a full-bellied guffaw, as if she has just delivered the most side-splitting anecdote of his week. Remarkably creative, he remarks, shaking his head. I'll grant you that, Judge. That's a novel approach. A second patrol vehicle, its emergency lights strobing erratically, arrives on the scene. Sergeant Carla Reyes emerges from the car, a woman in her mid-40s, bearing the accumulated wisdom of 2 decades on the force. Her gaze sweeps the tableau with a seasoned appraisal, taking in the opulent Mercedes, the dignified presence of Judge Nadia Brooks, the expensive attire, her measured speech, and the conspicuous absence of any panic. Sergeant Carla Reyes approaches Officer Vance Keller, her boots crunching audibly on the loose gravel of the shoulder. Are you certain about this one? She inquires in a low register, a tone she believes is inaudible to Judge Nadia Brooks. Absolutely. I'm positive, Officer Vance Keller affirms. Trust my judgment. Sergeant Carla Reyes offers a slow nod. Proceed by the book, then. Document every single detail. The underlying message is crystal clear. Protect yourself. Ensure the narrative is unassailable. Judge Nadia Brooks observes this silent negotiation, filing the interaction away for future reference. It's evident these officers have orchestrated such encounters before. They possess a practice system. May I contact my husband? Judge Nadia Brooks inquires, her voice measured, devoid of supplication, a simple question. He's an attorney. You will receive your telephone call at the station, Officer Vance Keller interrupts, his tone identical to that afforded every other detainee. 15 feet distant, a third officer stands sentinel beside his patrol car. Officer Javier Ruiz, a recent academy graduate, a mere 8 months into his service, 26 years of age. His dashcam is active. Its recording commenced the moment he arrived. He remains silent, motionless, his hand resting casually on his utility belt. His expression is unreadable in the prevailing darkness, yet his silence possesses a profound, almost deafening weight. Judge Nadia Brooks registers his presence, their gazes briefly meeting. He looks away with unnatural haste. She recognizes that look instantly. It's the expression of profound moral unease, the discomfort that arises when one is acutely aware of wrongdoing but feels powerless to intervene. Sergeant Carla Reyes now advances toward Judge Nadia Brooks, directing the beam of her flashlight directly into her face, studying her intently. Ma'am, we require you to accompany us to the station. All these matters can be resolved there." "Resolve what exactly?" Judge Nadia Brooks questions. "The automobile is registered in my name. My documentation is valid. On what grounds am I being detained?" "Suspicion of operating a stolen vehicle," Officer Vance Keller states, his certainty bordering on arrogance, and will add false impersonation of a public official to the charges. He is, in this moment, actively constructing a case, inflating its significance beyond any reasonable measure. Judge Nadia Brooks ceases her arguments. It's futile. Not here, not now, not with 3 officers present and the relentless rush of highway traffic bearing witness. She resolves to let the coming dawn champion her cause. Officer Vance Keller returns to his patrol car, slides into the driver's seat, and inputs Judge Nadia Brooks's particulars into the departmental computer. License number, registration details, vehicle identification number. He waits, his fingers tapping an impatient rhythm on the steering wheel. The radio crackles to life. "Unit 52, this is dispatch," a female voice announces, neutral and professional. "Georgia registration for the vehicle returns as valid, registered to owner Nadia Brooks, residing in Buckhead. No outstanding warrants, no stolen vehicle report on file. You are clear to proceed." Officer Vance Keller stares at the computer screen, the information starkly contradicting his pre-existing certainty. Sergeant Carla Reyes appears at his window, leaning down to peer inside. "Did it come back clean?" "Yes, clean," Officer Vance Keller confirms, though a disquiet lingers. "Trust your instincts. If something feels amiss, document it thoroughly. Process her, and we'll address everything at the station." In the rear of Officer Vance Keller's patrol car, Judge Nadia Brooks sits behind the protective partition, her hands cuffed behind her back, experiencing profound discomfort. The cold plastic seat offers little solace through her coat. She has overheard the entirety of the radio exchange, every word precisely articulated. They are aware the vehicle is not stolen. Dispatch has confirmed it. Yet they persist. Her jaw tightens perceptibly. Fear has dissipated, replaced by a sharp, calculating focus. She is strategizing, formulating her next moves, thinking several steps ahead. Officer Vance Keller exits his vehicle and approaches the Mercedes, flashlight in hand, and opens the passenger door. Inventory search. A legal ambiguity, yet he proceeds. He discovers her briefcase resting on the passenger seat. It's leather, undoubtedly expensive, with embossed initials on its surface. NB. He opens it. Inside are court documents, case files, business cards bearing her name, and official letterhead from the Fulton County Superior Court. All unequivocally legitimate. He swiftly flips through the papers, his eyes landing on a case number on a file tab. State versus Keller. The name fails to register immediately. Keller is a common surname. It could belong to anyone. His ego, however, prevents him from recognizing the truth staring him in the face. Sergeant Carla Reyes approaches the passenger window. "Anything of note?" Officer Vance Keller holds up one of Judge Nadia Brooks's business cards. "She's presenting fabricated judicial credentials, a professional forgery, quite convincing." Sergeant Carla Reyes examines the card, her fingers testing the quality of the paper, reading the embossed seal. "Book her for false impersonation as well," Sergeant Carla Reyes advises. "Impersonation of a public official. That's a felony." Judge Nadia Brooks's voice emanates from the partition, her controlled composure now giving way to a palpable fury. "Officer Keller, I strongly urge you to verify my identity through the courthouse before proceeding. This situation will not conclude as you anticipate." Officer Vance Keller slams the briefcase shut and returns to the driver's seat of his patrol car. "They all pull this stunt," he remarks to Sergeant Carla Reyes. "Expensive car, phony credentials, likely has a lawyer boyfriend feeding her lines." Sergeant Carla Reyes nods. "Just ensure your report is impeccably detailed." Behind them, Officer Javier Ruiz shifts his weight, a subtle manifestation of his palpable unease and moral conflict. He clears his throat once. His dashcam continues its silent, unwavering surveillance, meticulously recording every word, every action, every infraction. Judge Nadia Brooks observes him in the side mirror, noting his posture, his detachment from the other two officers, his non-participation, his inability to halt the proceedings, yet his undeniable role as a witness. She files this observation away. Officer Vance Keller starts his engine and merges onto the interstate, heading towards the precinct. Sergeant Carla Reyes follows in her patrol car, and Officer Javier Ruiz brings up the rear. A silent convoy of 3 vehicles, their lights flashing rhythmically, no sirens wailing. The journey proceeds in hushed tones. Judge Nadia Brooks remains silent, making no demands for her rights, issuing no threats of legal action. She is engaged in a protracted strategy. She closes her eyes, not in sleep, but in deep contemplation. Every legal instinct is heightened. Every strategic calculation is in motion. She understands that any argument now would be futile, incapable of altering the present course of events and potentially exacerbating her situation. Consequently, she waits, conserving her energy, preparing for the true confrontation, the one that will unfold with the dawn. They arrive at the precinct. Officer Vance Keller maneuvers his vehicle into the sally port. Sergeant Carla Reyes positions her car alongside his. Officer Javier Ruiz parks last, his silence unbroken, his role as a witness unabated. Inside, Lieutenant Adrian Soto, engrossed in processing paperwork, multitasks at the booking desk, barely acknowledging their arrival. "Did you run her information through the system?" Lieutenant Adrian Soto inquires, a routine question delivered perfunctorily. "Her record is clean," Officer Vance Keller states. However, the vehicle profile aligns with the pattern we've been observing. A luxury car, late at night, displaying nervous behavior. Lieutenant Adrian Soto affixes his signature to the form without reviewing its contents, simply pushing it back across the desk. Book her. Process her. The day shift can handle the follow-up. The transaction is remarkably simple. A single signature, no probing questions, no verification attempted. Judge Nadia Brooks is fingerprinted, photographed, and her personal effects are meticulously inventoried. Her mobile phone, her handbag, her keys, her very dignity, all are unceremoniously placed into a manila envelope. They escort her to a holding cell, a small stark concrete space furnished with a single metal bench. An occupant, a woman evidently intoxicated, slumbers deeply, snoring audibly. Judge Nadia Brooks occupies the opposite end of the bench, her expensive coat still draped around her shoulders, her composure intact, her mind actively engaged. The heavy metal door of the holding cell clangs shut, its reverberation echoing down the corridor. She remains unfazed. Standard procedure dictates one telephone call, which she is now permitted. From the corridor phone, under the watchful eye of her supervising officer, she initiates the call, ensuring her conversation remains uncontroversial. Her husband, Daniel Brooks, also an attorney specializing in corporate law, answers on the second ring. His familiarity with the legal system is an asset. "Daniel, listen carefully. Do not speak. Do not come to the station. Do not contact anyone. Meet me at the courthouse tomorrow morning. I will explain everything then. Trust me." A discernible pause follows. She senses his unspoken questions, his breath catching in his throat. "Are you safe?" he finally asks. "I will be. I love you." She terminates the call, returns to the cell, and resumes her seat on the cold metal bench. The drunk woman's snores fill the air, punctuated by the incessant buzz of fluorescent lights and the rhythmic drip of a leaky toilet. She closes her eyes once more, not in defeat, but in renewed strategizing, planning, waiting. At his desk, Officer Vance Keller meticulously completes his arrest report, his fingers flying across the keyboard with an air of self-assured justification, convinced of his righteous actions. He uploads his body camera footage to the server. He makes a note in the system indicating a malfunction with the video equipment, stating that only audio is available. The video did not malfunction. He deliberately deactivated it, a common tactic when one wishes to avoid full accountability. However, the audio recording remained active, a fact he overlooks. He assumes the entire recording is compromised. This assumption is incorrect. His every utterance, his dismissive laughter, his biased assumptions are all captured. He concludes his report, logs out, and heads home, sleeping soundly, confident that the case is closed, that he has emerged victorious. Tomorrow will serve as a stark and unforgiving refutation of his conviction. The case file rests on his desk. The documentation is filed. The system has processed another arrest, another woman of color, another high-end automobile, another presumption of guilt, which, in his mind, has been confirmed. Except this time, he is catastrophically mistaken. The file will be meticulously reviewed. The footage will be scrutinized. The unvarnished truth will surface, but not tonight. Tonight, he sleeps. Judge Nadia Brooks does not. Judge Nadia Brooks is released from the holding cell. A different desk sergeant, working the day shift, completely oblivious to the preceding events, to the context, to everything. Charges are pending review by the district attorney. He states in a routine, monotone delivery, "You are free to leave. Sign here for your personal property." She signs, retrieves her phone, its battery depleted, her handbag, her keys, her dignity, all gradually being returned. She walks out of the precinct. The crisp morning air greets her face. She did not contact Daniel again. She did not request transportation. She will drive herself. The Mercedes remains in the impound lot behind the building. It was processed but not impounded, as no concrete evidence of theft, and thus no theft was established. She enters the vehicle, starts the engine, and notes the distinct scratches on the door handle, a tangible reminder of the handcuffs and the violent impact against the metal. Visible damage, a permanent memento. She shows no outward reaction, merely a silent acknowledgement. It serves as evidence, physical evidence of excessive force. The drive home is silent. The interstate, the same stretch of highway, early morning traffic now beginning to flow. She arrives at her residence in Buckhead, a stately colonial-style home. Daniel's car is parked in the driveway. He too has not slept, having waited up all night. He opens the door before she reaches it, his face a tableau of relief, followed by a surge of anger, then bewildered confusion. "Nadia, what in the world happened? You sounded—" "Not now," she interjects, passing him and entering the house. "I need to shower. I need to change. Then I will explain everything." She ascends the stairs, shedding her coat, her blouse, her trousers. An odor of the holding cell, of concrete, of despair, and of industrial cleaning solutions pervades everything. She showers, the hot water as scalding as she can tolerate, washing away the physical residue, the indignity, the violation, but not the simmering anger that remains, fueling her resolve. She dries herself, opens her closet, and reaches for her judicial robes. The black fabric, heavy and authoritative. She lays them on the bed, regarding them with intent. This is her armor. This is the return of her power. She dresses methodically, each button fastened a step towards reclamation, each layer a process of restoration. Daniel awaits in the kitchen. Coffee brewed, 2 mugs placed on the counter. He understands the wisdom of patience. He knows better than to press. She will speak when she is ready. She descends the stairs, the robes folded over her arm. She pours coffee, takes a sip, and finally meets his gaze. "Last night, Officer Vance Keller apprehended me for driving my own vehicle. He alleged it was stolen. Dispatch confirmed otherwise. He arrested me regardless and then charged me with impersonating a public official." Daniel's face registers a rapid succession of emotions: disbelief, incandescent rage, and sharp calculation. "We sue?" he asks immediately. "A federal civil rights violation. I'll have the paperwork filed by—" "No." Her voice is firm, resolute. "Not yet. Nadia, they falsely arrested you. That constitutes—" "I am aware of the legal parameters." She sets down her coffee. "However, I will be handling this in my own manner. Meet me at the courthouse this morning. The main courtroom. You will understand then." He studies her face, recognizing that particular expression, the look of a trial lawyer, the strategic countenance. "What exactly are you planning, Judge?" she asks simply. She glances at her watch. 1 hour and 15 minutes until court convenes. until Officer Vance Keller's trial commences. His excessive force case, the very case she was assigned to review weeks ago, the reason for her late-night drive yesterday. The universe, it seems, possesses a profound sense of irony. She finishes her coffee, gathers her briefcase, the same one Officer Vance Keller had so carelessly rifled through, still containing the same crucial case files, including his own. "I'll see you at the courthouse," she tells Daniel, bestowing a kiss upon his cheek. He nods, a lingering sense of bewilderment in his eyes, but his trust in her remains unwavering, as it always has. She drives to the courthouse, parks in the designated judge's reserved section, and enters through a side entrance, deliberately avoiding the main lobby. She wishes to avoid any premature encounters, any need for immediate explanations. She proceeds directly to her chambers, secures the door, and sits at her desk, opening the case file. State of Georgia versus Vance Keller. She has perused its contents multiple times already, knows it by heart. Allegations of excessive force. A 17-year-old individual named Jordan Ellis. A traffic stop that escalated disastrously. Officer Vance Keller's knee applied forcefully to the youth's back. A disproportionate and unwarranted response, a discernible pattern of behavior. She reads it again, this time with a fresh perspective, her own perspective. Personal eyes, victim's eyes. For now she is not merely the judge, she is the evidence. She is Exhibit A in a pattern she never anticipated becoming a part of. Her phone buzzes. A text message from the bailiff. Courtroom prepared. Parties are arriving. She stands, dons her robes, and checks her reflection in the small mirror adorning her wall. Composed, professional, no discernible trace of last night's ordeal. But beneath the robes, beneath the veneer of composure and the professional mask, seethes a cold, calculating, patient rage. She is about to enter that courtroom, about to preside from that bench, about to confront the very officer who arrested her mere hours ago, and he has absolutely no inkling of what awaits him. None. She picks up her gavel, feeling its weight, the inherent authority, the palpable power. She does not intend to call a lawyer to pursue a lawsuit. She requires no such counsel. She is the law. And within minutes, Officer Vance Keller will experience a profound and irrefutable understanding of that fact. 48 hours prior, before the events of last night transpired, before the arrest, before the subsequent cascade of consequences, Officer Javier Ruiz stands at attention. Police Academy graduation. His father stands beside him, a first-generation immigrant who arrived from Ireland 30 years prior with nothing but ambition. He has since built a successful construction business and financed the college education of his 3 children. His father grips his shoulder, his eyes reflecting immense pride, but also a discernible undercurrent of concern and caution. You became an officer so people like us would be kept safe. Yes. His father's accent, still thick after 3 decades. Good. Now, be the officer we needed when we first arrived here, not the one we feared. Promise me. Officer Javier Ruiz promises, though he has yet to fully grasp the profound weight of those words. He will, however, present. The same evening as Judge Nadia Brooks's arrest. Officer Javier Ruiz sits in the precinct locker room, depleted but intensely alert. Sleep eludes him. He cannot cease replaying the events he witnessed. He retrieves his personal tablet, accessing the file transfer from his patrol car's dashcam system. Departmental policy permits officers to review footage for report writing purposes. This is standard procedure. He watches the Mercedes being pulled over. The activation of the spotlight. Officer Vance Keller's approach, his demeanor aggressive, his assumptions already solidified before any interaction. Judge Nadia Brooks's hands resting calmly on the steering wheel, her visible compliance. Textbook. Documents presented without hesitation or delay. No fumbling, no resistance. Officer Vance Keller barely glances at them, dismissing them outright and escalating the situation without any apparent cause. Officer Javier Ruiz observes another detail, a critical one. The timestamp indicates that Officer Vance Keller placed Judge Nadia Brooks in handcuffs before the confirmation from dispatch had been received. This is a clear protocol violation. An officer is expected to await clearance before effecting an arrest. He did not wait. Officer Javier Ruiz reviews the footage multiple times. Each viewing solidifies what he already knows to be true. This was wrong. Not a simple mistake, not a misjudgment, but fundamentally wrong. Morning briefing. Officer Javier Ruiz arrives early. He approaches the coffee station in the corner where officers are congregating for the shift change. The day crew is replacing the night crew. He overhears Officer Vance Keller and Sergeant Carla Reyes conversing in hushed tones, believing their discussion to be discreet. It is not. Internal Affairs might have some questions regarding last night, Sergeant Carla Reyes remarks casually, as if discussing inconsequential weather patterns. Just routine follow-up on arrests. Officer Vance Keller pours creamer into his coffee, stirring it deliberately. I adhered to procedure. She fit the profile we've been trained to identify. Precisely, Sergeant Carla Reyes replies. Just ensure your documentation is worded precisely. Furtive movements. Suspicious behavior. You know the drill. Officer Javier Ruiz freezes, his coffee cup halfway to his lips. He is witnessing them collaboratively construct a narrative, refine their language, and strategize their defenses. This is not their first instance of such behavior. It is practiced, systematic. His father's words echo in his mind. Be the officer we needed, not the one we feared. Officer Javier Ruiz sets his coffee down, untouched. He walks out of the briefing room, proceeds to his patrol car, and sits in the driver's seat, his hands resting on the steering wheel, unconsciously mirroring Judge Nadia Brooks' posture from the previous night. A notice for his student loan payment is visible on the dashboard, due soon. His paycheck barely covers it, in addition to rent and his parents' medical bills, stemming from his father's back surgery last year, the expenses of which are still being paid. He desperately needs this job. Having been on the force for only 8 months, he is still in his probationary period. They can terminate his employment without cause and without recourse. However, his father's admonition resonates powerfully. Be the officer we needed. Officer Javier Ruiz starts his car, bypassing his scheduled patrol, and drives to the Internal Affairs Office, a separate building situated across town, intentionally isolated from the main precinct. He parks, remains in the car for several minutes, wrestling with his decision, calculating the potential repercussions. He knows the cost. He enters the building. Detective Maya Torres occupied her workspace. 15 years she had served within the Internal Affairs Department, witnessing a multitude of situations, hearing every plausible and implausible justification, every fabricated story, every concerted effort to conceal wrongdoing. While her demeanor could be characterized as jaded, her principles remained unwavering. She was resolute yet equitable, firm yet just. Her focus shifted upward as Officer Javier Ruiz entered the room, her recognition of him immediate. He was a recruit, barely 8 months into his tenure, still possessing the immaturity of youth. Officer Ruiz, what can I do for you? She inquired. Officer Javier Ruiz remained standing in the threshold of her office, one foot partially inside, the other poised for retreat, seemingly undecided. Last night, I observed something, he began. It was during a traffic stop. Officer Keller, I believe there was a breach of professional conduct. Detective Maya Torres's expression remained impassive, yet her interest intensified. Do you believe this, or do you possess certainty? She probed. I have dashcam recordings, he stated. Allow me to examine them. Officer Javier Ruiz evinced hesitation. May this report be submitted anonymously? Detective Maya Torres reclined in her chair, her gaze intently studying him, perceiving the apprehension, the internal conflict between duty and self-preservation, the strategic considerations regarding his career. She had encountered this scenario many times before, observing officers who aspired to uphold integrity but were paralyzed by the fear of repercussions. I can receive evidence through our anonymous digital submission portal, she stated carefully. Please upload the file. Ensure you include the precise time and location. I will handle the subsequent steps. Officer Javier Ruiz inclined his head in acknowledgement, retrieved his tablet, connected to the office's guest Wi-Fi network and commenced the file upload. He added a brief annotation. Interstate mile marker. Officer Keller. Potential misconduct. My conscience compels me to report this. He initiated the transmission. The file uploaded, its progress bar reaching completion. A notification chimed on Detective Maya Torres' computer. New file received. She accessed it and began viewing the video. Her jaw gradually tensed as the footage unfolded. The veneer of her professional detachment began to crack. The playback paused when the visage of Judge Nadia Brooks became clearly visible under the vehicle's spotlight. She zoomed in. A flicker of recognition crossed her features. Officer Ruiz. Her voice had transformed, acquiring a sharper, more urgent timbre. Do you know who this individual is? No, ma'am, he replied. Should I? Detective Maya Torres regarded him with a calculating look, deliberating the extent of information to impart. You will, she declared finally. Everyone soon will. She rose and walked to her office door, surveying the corridor to ensure no one was within earshot. You made the correct decision by coming to me. This information will remain confidential. Return to your duties. Maintain your usual demeanor. Do not discuss this with anyone. Is that understood? Yes, ma'am. As Officer Javier Ruiz was departing, Detective Maya Torres halted him. Your conscience served you commendably. Do not let that falter. Officer Javier Ruiz exited the Internal Affairs Division and returned to his patrol vehicle. His hands trembled as he started the engine, a confluence of adrenaline, apprehension, and relief surging through him. He had acted honorably. Though it might jeopardize everything he had worked for, he had done the right thing. He proceeded back to the precinct, logged in for his shift, and as Detective Maya Torres had instructed, he maintained an appearance of normalcy. He commenced his patrol, responding to calls and issuing citations. The outward routine remained unchanged, yet internally nothing felt the same. Back in her office, Detective Maya Torres secured her door and replayed the footage. She observed Judge Nadia Brooks' outward compliance, Officer Vance Keller's aggressive posturing, and Sergeant Carla Reyes' tacit approval. The entire sequence was meticulously preserved in pristine digital clarity. She retrieved her phone and dialed Captain Lyle Hargrove directly, Sergeant Carla Reyes' supervisor, and a tier higher in the command structure. Captain, it's Torres, she stated. We need to speak before court this morning. It's imperative. A brief pause ensued, during which she could discern the sound of him sipping coffee. How urgent? He inquired. Urgent enough to jeopardize careers, and it involves Judge Nadia Brooks. Another, more prolonged silence followed. I will be there momentarily. Detective Maya Torres terminated the call, opened her case management software, initiated a new file, marked it as high priority and confidential, and began meticulously documenting timestamps, screenshots, and the chain of custody for the evidence. This was her 15th year conducting such investigations, having scrutinized dozens of officers, recognized recurring patterns, unearthed cover-ups, and observed the system's inherent tendency to shield its own. However, this particular case presented a significant deviation. It implicated a judicial officer, a judge who had been detained mere hours before presiding over the trial of the very officer who had arrested her. This situation had the potential to detonate. She initiated another call, bypassing the established chain of command, a measure justified by the gravity of the circumstances, directly to the police chief. Chief, it's Torres, she announced. You need to be present in courtroom 3 this morning. Do not inquire further. Simply attend and bring your communication device. You will want to document this. She disconnected before he could respond. Within minutes, Officer Vance Keller would enter that courtroom, feeling assured and prepared, under the assumption that he was merely defending himself against a singular complaint of excessive force. He was entirely unaware that the net was already closing in, that internal affairs had been activated, that his captain and the chief would be observing from the gallery, and that every action from the preceding night had now been catalogued as evidence. He had no inkling of what awaited him. The footage was already ascending the hierarchy of command. Officer Vance Keller resided in a suburban dwelling, a modest 3-bedroom ranch house, managing a mortgage that strained his earnings. He completed his morning ablutions, shaved, and donned his dress uniform, meticulously pressed and immaculate, his shoes polished to regulation standards. His mobile device vibrated. A text message arrived from his legal counsel, Attorney Kyle Bennett, a criminal defense attorney experienced in navigating police-related cases. Judge has not shifted. Maintain your prepared statement. She is known for her impartiality, but demands thoroughness. Maintain a professional tone exclusively. While knotting his tie, Officer Vance Keller responded via text, "Understood. Had a peculiar stop last night, though. A woman claimed to be a judge. Can you believe it? Tried every tactic." He surveyed himself in the mirror, adjusted his collar, projecting an image of readiness and confidence. His phone buzzed again. Attorney Kyle Bennett's reply appeared. "What was her name?" Officer Vance Keller typed with one hand while reaching for his keys. "Nelson, Nadia Brooks. Had a whole briefcase of fraudulent identification. Quite impressive, honestly." He sent the message and proceeded to his vehicle, oblivious to Attorney Kyle Bennett's reaction, as the attorney, upon reading the text, simply stared at his phone, slumped heavily into his office chair, and closed his eyes. He recognized the name instantly, fully aware of Judge Nadia Brooks' identity and having previously appeared before her, noting her reputation for fairness, coupled with an unyielding adherence to procedural accuracy. Attorney Kyle Bennett glanced at the case file on his desk. State versus Vance Keller. The trial was imminent, with Judge Nadia Brooks presiding. His client had, in essence, detained the presiding judge mere hours before the proceedings commenced. Attorney Kyle Bennett picked up his phone, his thumb hovering over Officer Vance Keller's contact information. Should he initiate a call? Offer a warning? Grant him time to prepare? He decided against it, opting for a calculated professional approach. Alerting Officer Vance Keller at this juncture could be construed as obstruction. It would be more prudent to assess the situation in person to gauge the severity of the circumstances firsthand. He put away his phone, gathered his files, and departed for the courthouse. In the main entrance of the Internal Affairs Office, Detective Maya Torres dispatched an email to Captain Lyle Hargrove. "Urgent. Request an immediate hold on the Keller case hearing pending my briefing. Evidence of serious misconduct on the eve of trial. Recommend your presence in the courtroom." Captain Lyle Hargrove read the message, checked his watch, noting the proximity of the trial. He promptly contacted Detective Maya Torres. "How grave are we speaking?" he asked. "Grave enough to potentially end careers, possibly leading to criminal charges, and Captain, Judge Brooks is the complainant." Silence emanated from the other end of the line. Captain Lyle Hargrove processed the information, considering the far-reaching implications, the exposure, and the potential liabilities. "Good heavens. All right. I will be there. Do not alert him. Let's observe how he conducts himself when he realizes." "That was already part of the plan," Detective Maya Torres responded. "We need his reaction documented. It will serve as evidence of consciousness of guilt." Captain Lyle Hargrove ended the call, retrieved his jacket, instructed his secretary to clear his morning schedule due to an emergency, and headed towards the courthouse. Upon arriving at the courthouse's main entrance, Officer Vance Keller parked his vehicle in the public lot and proceeded through security, leaving his badge and firearm secured in his car as per court protocol. He observed other officers in the hallway, colleagues attending to various cases and hearings. They offered nods and wishes of good luck. He harbored no concerns, confident in his defense strategy, asserting that he had adhered to departmental training and that the individual in his case had been resisting. He believed he had acted entirely by the book. Attorney Kyle Bennett arrived a few minutes later, spotted Officer Vance Keller awaiting proceedings on a bench outside courtroom 3. He approached, briefcase in hand, his expression carefully controlled. "Blake," he addressed the bailiff. The bailiff opened the courtroom doors. "All rise," he announced. "The Honorable Judge Nadia Brooks presiding." Officer Vance Keller, still engaged in conversation with Attorney Kyle Bennett and reviewing his notes, walked through the doors, his attention not yet focused on the proceedings. The side door opened, signifying the judge's entrance. 3 steps led up to the bench. Officer Vance Keller glanced up. Time seemed to freeze. The realization struck him with the force of a runaway train. Officer Vance Keller's eyes widened. He blinked, and they widened again. His mind struggled to reconcile the image before him. The color drained from his face, leaving him not pale, but a ghastly ashen hue. His lips parted, but no sound emerged. His throat constricted. The briefcase slipped from his grasp, hitting the floor with a startlingly loud thud that echoed throughout the courtroom. Every head turned. His knees buckled, feeling as though his joints had liquefied. Gravity seemed to pull him askew. He swayed forward, his right hand shooting out to brace himself against the defense table, gripping the edge with white knuckles, clinging on as if for dear life. His left hand clutched his chest, the fabric of his shirt bunched in his fist. He struggled to breathe, his breaths shallow and rapid. A cold sweat broke out across his forehead. Attorney Kyle Bennett grasped his elbow, physically steadying him. "Sit down," he hissed urgently. "Now!" Officer Vance Keller collapsed into the chair, not sitting, but rather succumbing to its embrace. The chair scraped loudly against the floor, drawing the attention of everyone in the room. The bailiff, an experienced man who had witnessed countless such moments, stepped forward. "Sir, are you all right? Do you require medical assistance? We can call for EMTs." Officer Vance Keller shook his head vehemently, unable to form words, his hand still gripping the table, the room still spinning. She settled into her chair, taking her time, meticulously arranging the papers on the bench, straightening her nameplate, and adjusting her water glass. Each movement was deliberate and controlled. She deliberately avoided looking at him, a calculated power play designed to prolong his distress. The gallery began to whisper, a low murmur spreading like wildfire. "What is wrong with that officer? Why does he look so unwell? Is he ill?" In the back row, Captain Lyle Hargrove sat with his phone in hand, recording. Detective Maya Torres was seated beside him, also recording. Both meticulously documented this moment, this reaction, as crucial evidence for the internal affairs file. Judge Nadia Brooks finally raised her gaze, her eyes locking onto Officer Vance Keller for a full 3 seconds, unblinking and cold. He could not sustain her stare, averting his eyes. The papers on the table blurred before him, his hands visibly trembling. "Counsel," Judge Nadia Brooks inquired, her voice as frigid as a glacier, formal in its tone. "Does your client require medical assistance? We can take a recess if necessary." Attorney Kyle Bennett stood, one hand still resting on Officer Vance Keller's shoulder, effectively supporting him. "No, Your Honor. We are prepared to proceed." It was a blatant falsehood, a strategic maneuver to avoid admitting his client's complete breakdown. "Good morning, counsel." Judge Nadia Brooks addressed the full courtroom, her tone official. "Case number is State of Georgia versus Vance Keller. Allegations of excessive force stemming from an incident. Before we commence, I must make a disclosure to the court." The word disclosure struck Officer Vance Keller like a second blow. His head snapped up, a fresh wave of panic washing over his face as the color drained from it once more. Assistant District Attorney Sophia Ramirez stood, a young, prepared prosecutor, entirely unaware of the unfolding context. "Ready, Your Honor," she stated. "I said, I need to make a disclosure first, Counselor." Judge Nadia Brooks' voice cut through sharply. "Please be seated." Assistant District Attorney Sophia Ramirez sat down, visibly confused. Everyone in the room was perplexed, except for Officer Vance Keller, Attorney Kyle Bennett, Captain Lyle Hargrove, and Detective Maya Torres. They understood the implications of what was about to be revealed. A profound silence descended upon the courtroom, so quiet one could hear a pin drop, every eye fixed on Judge Nadia Brooks. Officer Vance Keller's breathing was ragged and audible, almost a wheezing sound. Attorney Kyle Bennett leaned down and whispered in his ear, "Whatever happens next, do not speak. Do you understand me?" Not a single word. Officer Vance Keller could not respond, managing only a barely perceptible nod. Judge Nadia Brooks' hands rested flat on the bench, steady, devoid of any tremor, demonstrating absolute control. The courtroom waited, breath held, anticipating the imminent revelation. And Judge Nadia Brooks took her time, savoring this moment, a moment earned through personal experience of handcuffs and humiliation, and a night spent in a holding cell. Now she commanded it, every second, every gaze, every outcome. She looked at Officer Vance Keller one final time, observing his complete unraveling, witnessing the realization that was systematically destroying him from within. Good, she thought. Let him feel it. Let him understand what he did, what he is about to lose. Then she began to speak. The last time I was stopped by Officer Vance Keller on the interstate, I was subsequently arrested on suspicion of operating a stolen vehicle and impersonating a public official. I was held in custody until this morning and released without charges being filed. The courtroom erupted. Gasps and whispers filled the air, shock rippling through every row. Assistant District Attorney Sophia Ramirez's mouth fell open in disbelief. She turned to look at Officer Vance Keller, then back at Judge Nadia Brooks, rapidly connecting the dots and calculating the ramifications. Attorney Kyle Bennett closed his eyes and exhaled slowly. He knew the situation was dire, but he hadn't anticipated it being this catastrophic. He remained at the table, unable to look up, frozen in place. Judge Nadia Brooks continued, her voice unwavering, betraying no emotion. Georgia Code of Judicial Conduct. Canon 3 requires disclosure of any interaction between a presiding judge and parties appearing before the court that might create an appearance of bias or conflict of interest. I have now made this disclosure fully and completely. Let it sink in. Let everyone process. I am not recusing myself from this case. Attorney Kyle Bennett immediately stood, a required action. He had to object, to at least attempt to intervene. Your Honor, with all due respect, this creates an unavoidable appearance of impropriety. The defendant arrested you hours before. This court must recognize, Counselor. Judge Nadia Brooks interrupted, her tone firm but controlled. Your client unlawfully arrested me based on racial profiling, in explicit violation of procedure. If anything, I am predisposed to be more scrupulously fair to ensure this proceeding is unimpeachable on appeal. My ruling today will be based solely and exclusively on the evidence presented in this courtroom. Are we clear? Attorney Kyle Bennett calculated, realizing further argument would only disadvantage his client, making it appear as though they were apprehensive of a fair trial. Yes, Your Honor. Then let us proceed with opening statements. Prosecution, you may begin. Judge Nadia Brooks picked up her water glass and took a deliberate sip, her hand perfectly steady, demonstrating complete control, not of vengeance but of power, devoid of emotion. She was not seeking retribution, she was pursuing justice, and she intended to deliver it meticulously, adhering to every rule, every procedure, and every precedent. This adherence, ironically, would make her actions even more detrimental to Officer Vance Keller, as he could not claim bias or unfairness, nor could he appeal on procedural grounds. She was granting him the fair trial that he had denied her, and that fairness would amplify his downfall. Assistant District Attorney Sophia Ramirez approached the podium, opened her file, and began to comprehend the magnitude of the task before her. This was no longer merely a case of excessive force, it represented a pattern of behavior. Your Honor, she began, the state will demonstrate that Officer Vance Keller used excessive force during a routine traffic stop of 17-year-old Jordan Ellis. She initiated playback of the body camera footage on the courtroom monitor. It was footage from a different case, months prior, but the pattern was evident to everyone observing. Aggressive commands, disproportionate physical force, the young man on the ground with Officer Vance Keller's knee pressing down on his back with excessive pressure and duration. The boy cried out, pleading, not resisting. Jordan Ellis, now 17 but appearing younger, took the stand. He looked scared, yet his demeanor was honest and credible. I was reaching for my registration, like he asked. Jordan's voice trembled slightly. He yanked my door open, pulled me out. I didn't resist. I was terrified. Attorney Kyle Bennett conducted his cross-examination, performing his professional duty by attempting to introduce reasonable doubt. Officer Keller followed training protocols for a subject exhibiting furtive movements and potential resistance. I wasn't resisting, Jordan replied, his voice quiet but firm. I was shaking because I was scared. Attorney Kyle Bennett argued that Officer Vance Keller had made split-second decisions in the interest of officer safety, consistent with standard training, employing all the customary defenses. Judge Nadia Brooks observed and listened, recognizing the pattern she had been unable to perceive before, not being a direct participant then. Now she was. She leaned forward, interrupting the proceedings with her judicial prerogative. I would like to examine the defendant's pattern of conduct more thoroughly. Prosecution, are you aware of any similar incidents involving Officer Keller? Assistant District Attorney Sophia Ramirez hesitated. Your Honor, we have documentation of prior complaints, but they were all dismissed by supervisory review before reaching... I am not asking about complaints that were dismissed. Judge Nadia Brooks' voice sharpened, precise. I am asking about incidents, documented interactions, traffic stops, arrests. Assistant District Attorney Sophia Ramirez understood. We can request those records. From the back of the courtroom, the doors opened and Detective Maya Torres entered, walking down the center aisle, drawing every eye. She carried a sealed folder and approached the bench. Detective Torres, Internal Affairs Division. Please state your purpose. Internal Affairs received evidence of an incident involving Officer Keller that demonstrates a pattern of conduct directly relevant to the charges before this court. I have video evidence, audio recordings, and documentary analysis. Attorney Kyle Bennett immediately stood. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. We have not been provided discovery on... Counselor, Judge Nadia Brooks interrupted. This evidence pertains to an incident that occurred hours ago. There has not been time for formal discovery. I am allowing it under my discretion as directly relevant to pattern evidence. Your objection is noted for the record. Attorney Kyle Bennett sat down, realizing he was trapped. This momentum was unstoppable. Detective Maya Torres moved towards the prosecution table and handed Assistant District Attorney Sophia Ramirez a USB drive containing the dashcam footage from the previous night's traffic stop. The courtroom monitor displayed Officer Javier Ruiz's dashcam footage. The Mercedes was pulled over, illuminated by the spotlight. Detective Maya Torres narrated for the record. Subject vehicle, a Mercedes E-Class, was pulled over on the interstate. The driver immediately places their hands on the steering wheel, exhibiting visible compliance. The footage continued, showing Judge Nadia Brooks presenting her registration, Officer Vance Keller barely glancing at it, tossing it to the ground. The aggression, the escalation. The gallery gasped. Some recognized the judge, their judge, being arrested, being humiliated. Officer Vance Keller's aggressive actions were evident as he spun Judge Nadia Brooks around, applying excessive force to her arm, the handcuffs too tight. Her gasp of pain was audible. Sergeant Carla Reyes arrived, observing, approving, making the arrest official. Her body camera was visible in the background, recording, witnessing. Judge Nadia Brooks spoke from the bench, her tone clinical and detached, as if narrating someone else's trauma. That is me, hours ago. Please note the timestamp. Notice I presented my registration immediately upon request. Notice the registration was valid and visible in the headlight beam. Notice I made no resistant movements whatsoever. The courtroom erupted in whispers and gasps. People turned to each other, questioning if they had just witnessed what they believed they had. The bailiff called for order, and it took several minutes to restore quiet. Officer Vance Keller's face was now a deep red, his brow slick with sweat. He looked at his attorney with desperate eyes, but Attorney Kyle Bennett could not meet his gaze. He could not help him. No one could. Your Honor, Detective Maya Torres continued, Officer Keller's body camera video malfunctioned during this stop. However, the audio recording continued to operate. I have that audio. Play it, Judge Nadia Brooks commanded. The audio fed through the courtroom speakers. Officer Vance Keller's voice clear and damning. People like you always think you can drive cars like this. I know exactly what I'm looking at. I am Judge Nadia Brooks, presiding over the Fulton County Circuit Court. You may verify my identity. Officer Vance Keller's laughter, dismissive and cruel, echoed. Sure you are, he scoffed. Real creative. And I'm the President of the United States. Then, Sergeant Carla Reyes's voice cut in, firm and measured. "Process her completely. Document every step meticulously." Officer Vance Keller's voice returned, smug. "She fits the profile perfectly. Expensive vehicle, late hour, a black woman. We both understand how these situations typically unfold." The audio feed abruptly ceased. A profound silence descended upon the courtroom, a deafening stillness. Every individual present absorbed the weight of what they had just witnessed. The blatant prejudice, the ingrained racial bias, the deliberate choice to make an arrest despite a clear lack of corroborating evidence. Judge Nadia Brooks's voice sliced through the quiet, her tone icy and controlled, her fury barely contained. "Cold, Officer Keller," she stated, her voice sharp. "What exactly was this profile I was matching?" Officer Vance Keller stood, his legs trembling. His attorney, Kyle Bennett, attempted to pull him back down. "Your Honor, I was unaware you were present," he began. "Sit down," Judge Nadia Brooks commanded, her voice not loud but carrying an absolute final authority. "You will address questions when they are posed by counsel and not a moment sooner." Officer Vance Keller sank back into his chair, defeated. Attorney Kyle Bennett's hand gripped his arm, anchoring him. Detective Maya Torres stepped forward, presenting a thick bound report bearing the official seal of Internal Affairs. "Your Honor," she stated, her voice professional, "Internal Affairs conducted an expedited analysis overnight. Our findings indicate that over the past 18 months, Officer Keller has initiated numerous traffic stops exhibiting an alarmingly consistent pattern." She detailed the findings with chilling precision. Luxury automobiles, Mercedes, BMW, Lexus, Tesla. In every instance, the driver was black. All presented as professionally attired. The stops occurred during late evening hours. Multiple resulted in arrests on suspicion of vehicle theft or fraudulent documentation. Every single arrest was subsequently dismissed. No charges were ever filed. Furthermore, none of these incidents led to any disciplinary action. Assistant District Attorney Sofia Ramirez rose, a dawning comprehension of the full gravity of the situation on her face. "Your Honor, this establishes a clear, documented pattern of racially motivated misconduct and selective enforcement," Detective Maya Torres continued unfazed. "Additionally, Officer Keller's personnel file contains formal complaints lodged over several years. Allegations include excessive force, racial profiling, and the falsification of official reports." "And what became of those complaints, Detective?" Judge Nadia Brooks inquired, her gaze piercing, knowing the answer but requiring it on the record. "All of them were expunged from his record without the mandated review by the proper committee process. This constitutes a clear violation of department policy." "Who authorized those expungements, Detective?" "Lieutenant Adrian Soto, Your Honor. He is presently under investigation for obstruction of internal reviews and supervisory negligence." The gallery erupted once more. Reporters fumbled for their phones, recognizing the enormity of the unfolding story. This was not just about one individual, it was about a systemic issue, the story of a lifetime. The bailiff struggled to restore order. Judge Nadia Brooks remained patient, allowing the initial chaos to subside naturally. She then addressed Officer Vance Keller directly. "You arrested me," she stated, her voice calm, "for impersonating a public official. I was driving home after a legal consultation, having reviewed case files for a court proceeding. Do you recall which specific case I was reviewing?" Silence. Officer Vance Keller was physically incapable of responding. Judge Nadia Brooks lifted the case file from her bench, holding it aloft for all to see. "State of Georgia versus Vance Keller. Your case. You arrested the judge who was presiding over your trial for a fabricated crime, employing racial profiling that you have systematically practiced for years, a pattern your department actively concealed." She placed the file back on the bench and looked directly at him. "I have heard sufficient evidence. I find you guilty of excessive force in the case of Jordan Ellis. The evidence is overwhelming, and your consistent pattern of conduct demonstrates this was not an isolated incident, but rather your standard operating procedure." Officer Vance Keller's head drooped, a choked sob escaping him, a sound of utter brokenness. Judge Nadia Brooks continued, her resolve unwavering. I am also referring your conduct to the District Attorney for criminal prosecution under federal and state statutes for deprivation of civil rights under color of law and false imprisonment by a law enforcement officer. She was not finished. Sergeant Carla Reyes, you are hereby referred to Internal Affairs for supervisory negligence, enabling misconduct and failure to intervene. Lieutenant Adrian Soto, you will answer to the District Attorney for obstruction of justice and tampering with official records. Her final words were measured and powerful. This courtroom operates on evidence, not assumptions, on law, not bias, on justice, not prejudice. You showed me exactly who you are when you believed no one with authority was watching. Today, I am showing you precisely what justice looks like when the system finally holds its own accountable. The gavel struck, a single sharp crack that sealed the proceedings. Outside the courthouse, a media frenzy awaited. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions from all directions. Microphones were thrust forward. Captain Lyle Hargrove stood at a hastily arranged podium, the initial stages of damage control, but also a commitment to accountability. The Fulton County Police Department takes all allegations of misconduct with the utmost seriousness. Officer Vance Keller has been suspended without pay pending the criminal investigation. A reporter's voice cut through the din. Captain, was Judge Brooks targeted because she was presiding over Officer Keller's case? Is this retaliation? We are thoroughly investigating whether this incident constitutes witness intimidation and obstruction of justice. If proven, federal charges will apply. The FBI has been notified. Another reporter pressed. What about the pattern Detective Torres mentioned? A comprehensive review of all traffic stops conducted by Officer Keller is currently underway. Any victims of misconduct are strongly encouraged to contact Internal Affairs directly. Captain Lyle Hargrove fielded more questions, his demeanor professional and carefully measured. The damage, however, was undeniable. The department's reputation lay shattered, and the task of rebuilding would span years. From a side exit of the courthouse, Officer Javier Ruiz walked towards his car, attempting to avoid the media scrum, his head bowed. He stopped as Judge Nadia Brooks, still in her judicial robes, approached him. His stomach lurched. Your Honor, You were present at the scene last night, he stated. He could only nod, rendered speechless, terrified of what lay ahead. I apologize for not speaking up then, he stammered, words tumbling out in a rush. I should have intervened. I just froze. I'm so... Judge Nadia Brooks placed a hand on his shoulder, halting him. But you did not remain frozen. You provided Internal Affairs with the crucial evidence. That took a level of courage far exceeding speaking up in the moment. You risked your career, your financial security, everything. Officer Javier Ruiz's eyes welled with tears. He had anticipated anger, blame, perhaps even termination. My father always told me, he said quietly, his voice thick with emotion, be the officer people need, not the one they fear. I couldn't let it go. Your father raised you right, Judge Nadia Brooks said softly. The department needs more officers like you, not fewer. Remember that when this becomes more difficult. Will it get harder? He asked, a tremor in his voice. Judge Nadia Brooks nodded. Yes. Your colleagues will resent you. Some will use language I will not repeat here. But you will sleep at night, and you will build a career you can be proud of. That, Officer Ruiz, matters more. Officer Javier Ruiz nodded, a silent understanding passing between them. He walked to his car, standing a little taller than he had before. The consequences rippled outwards like falling dominoes. Officer Vance Keller was terminated immediately. He was arrested and federally charged with civil rights violations, facing years in prison. Bail was set at a substantial amount, his lawyer arguing he posed no flight risk, while the prosecutor maintained he was a danger to the community. The judge sided with the prosecution, and he remained in custody awaiting trial. The irony was not lost on anyone present. Sergeant Carla Reyes received a suspension without pay, demoted to a patrol officer with no supervisory authority. She was mandated to undergo bias training and transferred to a different precinct, placed on probationary status. One more complaint, and her career would be over. Lieutenant Adrian Soto was offered an early retirement option. He could resign voluntarily or face termination for cause, forfeiting his pension benefits. He chose retirement but lost a significant supervisory pension enhancement, a substantial reduction for the remainder of his life, a costly decision for a man in his early 50s. The Federal Bureau of Investigation opened a pattern and practice investigation into the police department, focusing on traffic enforcement practices. The Civil Rights Division became involved, and a consent decree was a distinct possibility, placing the department under federal oversight and mandating reform. In Judge Nadia Brooks' office, the police chief and deputy chief sat across from her, both visibly uncomfortable, both present because they had no other choice. "Judge Brooks," the chief began, "on behalf of the department, I want to personally apologize." "Apologies are insufficient without systemic change," Judge Brooks stated, sliding a typed list across the desk. They read it, a long, specific, and non-negotiable set of demands. Mandatory bias training for the entire department, not as a remedial measure, but as a preventative one, with no exceptions. Revised stop and search protocols. An independent review board. Civilian oversight. A complete overhaul of the body camera policy, mandating that cameras remain on at all times, with malfunctions investigated by a third-party auditor, not internal staff. An independent internal affairs oversight board comprising 3 civilian members and 2 representatives from community advocacy groups with voting power equal to police representatives. Quarterly traffic stop data to be published publicly, including demographic breakdowns, accessible through a searchable database, ensuring complete transparency. The chief read the list, his face hardening. "Judge, some of these require city council approval and budget allocation. I cannot simply—" "Then obtain approval," Judge Brooks interjected. "Secure the budget, or I will refer this entire matter to the Department of Justice for consent decree proceedings. The choice is yours." The chief paused, calculations flashing across his face. "I will need time to implement these changes." "You have months," Judge Brooks replied. "Written progress reports are to be delivered to my chambers monthly. I will be monitoring this personally." The chief nodded, understanding he had no real choice. He signed the acknowledgement and left. Judge Nadia Brooks allowed herself a small smile, the first in weeks. In the courthouse hallway, as Judge Nadia Brooks walked to her car, ending a long day, she heard a voice. "Judge Brooks." She turned to see Jordan Ellis, the teenager from the original excessive force case. He seemed older, or perhaps simply less fearful. "I wanted to thank you, for him and for me." He held up a document. "You expunged my arrest record." "You did nothing wrong, Jordan," she stated. "The record should reflect that." "What are you doing now?" "Community college. I'm majoring in criminal justice. I want to be a lawyer, maybe a prosecutor." Judge Nadia Brooks smiled, a genuine warmth radiating from her. "We need people who understand both sides. Keep my card. Call me if you need a recommendation letter." Jordan left, and Judge Nadia Brooks watched him go, hope visible in her expression. This was why she did it, not for the convictions, not for the power, but for the Jordan Ellises of the world, the ones who received second chances, the ones who survived the system and decided to change it. In the Internal Affairs Office, Detective Maya Torres reviewed an application. Officer Javier Ruiz was applying for a detective position within Internal Affairs, the youngest applicant in the department's history. She called him in for an interview, testing him, challenging him, asking him hard questions. "Most officers avoid this division," she stated. "We are not popular." "Because someone has to do it," Officer Javier Ruiz replied, his response simple and direct. "And I know the cost of looking away. I will not do that again." Detective Maya Torres smiled. "You are hired. Probationary detective. 6 months. Do not make me regret this." Officer Javier Ruiz nodded, his expression serious. "I will not." He began handling his own cases, investigating other officers, facing their resentment, their hostility, their silent treatment in the locker room. But his father's voice stayed with him. be the officer we needed. He was, every day, one case at a time. In Judge Nadia Brooks's home, she sat with Daniel, a glass of wine in hand, a quiet moment finally achieved after weeks of turmoil. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice gentle. "Really?" "Okay," she replied, not as a judge but as Nadia. "Okay, I'm tired, bone tired, still angry, but okay. We started something real. Systems are changing, slowly, but it is moving." Daniel took her hand. "What you did," he said, "that wasn't just about you, was it? It was about every person who gets pulled over and knows something is wrong, but has no power to stop it." "I had power," she responded. "I had to use it. There will be pushback, appeals, retaliation attempts. I know, but we started something. That is enough for today." In the final scene, in Judge Nadia Brooks's chambers, late afternoon, she reviewed new case files. The work continued. Justice did not stop. A knock at the door. Detective Javier Ruiz, now with Internal Affairs, delivered a report on another officer, another investigation. "Detective Ruiz," Judge Nadia Brooks said, a hint of pride in her voice, "congratulations on the promotion." "Thank you, Your Honor," he replied, handing her the file. "Preliminary report on Officer Lang, as you requested." She took it. "How is the work? Finding your footing?" "It is hard," he admitted. "Some officers will not speak to me, but I am sleeping at night." Judge Nadia Brooks smiled. "That is the job. Keep doing it well." Detective Javier Ruiz left. Judge Nadia Brooks returned to her files. The work continued, and it always would. Justice does not sleep. Neither does she. The scrapes on her car door from the handcuffs remained. She had kept them, instructing the dealership to leave them untouched. Some reminders were worth preserving. One of the most profound lessons conveyed by this narrative is that true justice is not solely about punishing wrongdoing, but also about possessing the fortitude to stand unwavering when every inclination is to falter. Judge Nadia Brooks experienced humiliation, was handcuffed, and was treated as if her truth held no significance. Yet she did not allow pain to curdle into animosity, nor did she permit rage to dominate her spirit. Instead, she chose patience, wisdom, and resilience. This is what renders her journey so remarkable. In reality, many individuals are judged before they are comprehended, wounded before they are heard, and underestimated before they are afforded the opportunity to speak. However, this story serves as a poignant reminder that dignity does not originate from how others treat us. It stems from the unwavering strength with which we uphold our values when the world endeavors to strip them away. It also imparts the crucial understanding that silence can perpetuate injustice, whereas courage can expose it. The young officer, who ultimately elected to do what was right, exemplifies that even a single honest decision can initiate a paradigm shift within an entire system. Occasionally, life places us in distressing circumstances, not to annihilate us, but to reveal our inherent strength, our purpose, and our voice. And when that pivotal moment arises, the most courageous act we can undertake is to stand tall, remain true to ourselves, and allow truth to resonate more powerfully than fear. If this story resonated with you, please share in the comments which lesson touched your heart the most. And if you believe narratives like this can foster courage, justice, and change, kindly subscribe to the channel and join us for more impactful and unforgettable stories.
In the end, the truth always comes out.